Alright guys, today's project is to install a new steering stabilizer brace on this 2008 Dodge Ram 2500. Now this kit I got was made by Synergy Manufacturing. It's part number 8558-04 and I picked it up from Geno's garage. Now inside this kit we get one each steering brace, which is made out of 2" by 2" square tubing, and it's got a 1/4" plate for all the mounting points. Comes with a bearing that has a locking collar on it that we'll show you how to put together here in a little bit. And it comes with this Pitman arm bearing stud. Now this thing is designed to screw onto the steering box where the original nut used to be. And we have a bag of miscellaneous hardware. Now this kit seems pretty straightforward, so let's see how it goes. Alright, so laying under the front of the truck, we can see our stabilizer bar up here in the front. Now this bar is held to the frame by 2 mounts. There's one on either side, and each mount has 2 bolts in it. These bolts have to be taken out so we can rotate this bar down out of the way to gain access to work with all this stuff up here. So when you take these bolts out, remember that this bar is a lot heavier than it looks. So be sure that you're holding on to it when you take the bolt out. That way it doesn't fall down and hit you in the face. And all it does is just rotate right out of the way. So after we got our stabilizer now rotated out of the way, we have access to take our steering nut off. Now we need to remove this nut, but do not take the Pitman arm off. The Pitman arm needs to stay in place. Only the nut needs to come off. Now it's a pretty big socket. I don't have one that actually fit it, so I'm actually going to use this here adjustable wrench. Then we can twist this thing right on off of here. So now that we got the original nut and lock washer off, we can go ahead and install this extension stud that came in the kit. The kit also comes with a new lock washer that we have to use, and then we simply just thread this thing onto the steering box. Now this thing has to be threaded all the way up against the Pitman arm, and we have to torque it to 185 foot-pounds. Now I don't have a socket that's actually going to fit this because it requires an extra super deep socket. So I'm going to be using a wrench. So I'm just putting my wrench on here. We're going to He-Man the crap out of this thing and hope we get it up to about 185 foot-pounds. Alright, so the next thing we got to do is get our actual brace installed onto the truck. Now the kit comes with 4 new bolts for it. They're a little longer than the ones you took out of it. And it has you double washer them. So there's a flat washer and a lock washer on each of these bolts. So we get them set up. I just took the brace and put it up in position here and slid a bolt in to hold it in. So now I can take this entire assembly and rotate it up as one piece to get everything bolted back in. So once you get this bolted up there, do not tighten the bolts yet. You still need to adjust this thing, but we'll just get them started for now. So I got our brace bolted up under the truck, and it's still loose, which allows us to adjust this thing as we need to. And I've also coated our stud with some anti-seize in hopes that the bearing won't seize itself to this shaft in the future if I ever have to change it out. So now what we got to do is install our bearing itself. Now the bearing does have a grease fitting on it, and I would recommend pointing this towards the front of your vehicle to make servicing it a lot easier in the future. But we'll just line this thing up, kind of wiggle it around a hair, and it'll slide right up on there. Now the kit comes with some bolts here. We can line the brace up to our holes here, and we'll put this bolt in. And I'm going to install the bolts with the nuts on the top just because I think it looks a little better. It doesn't make any difference. Put them on however you want to. This is just my preferred way. Now once you have these things installed, both these bolts, we need to torque these bolts to 60 foot-pounds. And once this bearing mount is all tight and everything is good to go, we can torque the mounts the bolts we screwed into the frame earlier to 40 foot-pounds, and then we can move on to the next step. So now that we have all our hardware tight, the last thing to do is install this locking collar that comes with the bearing. Now this locking collar has an offset bore in it. This is so it actually binds the bearing to the shaft. That way it is impossible for that shaft to turn without taking the bearing with it. On this collar there is one set screw, and then it has another hole that does not have any threads into it. So we'll take this collar, set it up in this position here, and then rotate it until it falls into place. Right about there. Now if you notice, it'll only rotate so far. So we'll set this thing up in here, take a punch, put it in the hole that does not have threads in it, and then just give it a little tap with a hammer. That just bound this locking collar up against that bearing and this shaft. That way they're now one piece. After you get that done, take an Allen key, and we're going to tighten down this set screw. And that's all there is to it. Our brace is now installed. Alright guys, so I drove this truck around for a few days to give you some honest feedback on the steering brace. I do feel like the steering brace enhanced the steering of the truck. It made the steering feel tighter, made the truck handle better, and I get less feedback from the road while we're driving it. Overall, I think it was a worthwhile upgrade. It was pretty easy to install. You can do it in a few hours in your driveway with some basic hand tools, and I would recommend it for anybody looking to upgrade their truck. So be sure to follow me around on YouTube and check out carbonitecummins.com for some more stuff I'm going to put on this truck here in the future.